The Tarkun Dominion was one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Their warships could destroy planets, their soldiers were feared across countless star systems, and their leaders believed they were superior to all other species. To them, humans were weak, fragile creatures, barely worth acknowledging. So when the Tarkun captured a human child, they saw an opportunity to mock humanity in front of the entire galaxy. A live broadcast was transmitted to thousands of worlds. On the screen, a young human girl, no older than 10, stood inside a Tarkun warship. Her name was Ilara Carter, taken from a human colony during a surprise Tarkun raid. She was small, wearing a simple blue dress, and her bright eyes were filled with confusion. The Tarkun commander, Warlord Vrazek, stood beside her. He was massive, 8 feet tall, covered in thick, greenish armor. His sharp teeth gleamed as he spoke in a deep, rumbling voice. "Look at this," he shouted, his voice booming across the galaxy. "This is the future of humanity. Weak, helpless, just a child. If this is what you sent to fight us, then your species has already lost." The Tarkun soldiers behind him laughed. Their voices echoed through the warship. Some pounded their fists on the walls, others raised their weapons, mocking the idea that humanity could ever stand against them. The broadcast reached every major civilization in the galaxy, but most importantly, it reached Earth. In the massive halls of the United Stellar Command, the leaders of humanity watched the broadcast in silence. Admiral Marcus Voss, the supreme commander of Earth's military, clenched his fists. His face remained calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fury. Across Earth, billions of humans watched as a Tarkun warrior leaned down, staring at little Ilara. "Tell me, little one," the warrior sneered, "what will your people do? Beg us for mercy." Ilara looked up at him. She was afraid, but she did not cry. She did not beg. Instead, she did something no one expected. She raised her hand and pointed directly at the camera. "They're coming for me," she said in a steady voice. "And when they arrive, you'll be the ones begging." The Tarkun soldiers froze. The room fell silent. For a moment, the only sound was the low hum of the warship's engines. Then Warlord Vrazek threw his head back and laughed. "Oh, you believe your tiny, weak people can challenge us?" He shook his head. "Humans are nothing. They will never." The broadcast cut off. For a few seconds, the galaxy was left in silence. Then Earth responded. A new message was sent across every channel, reaching every Tarkun fleet, every alien civilization, and every corner of the galaxy. It was short and simple. "Return the child, or we will take her back ourselves." And then, across Earth's skies, the greatest armada in human history began to move. The United Stellar Command was silent as the message from the Tarkun Dominion ended. The image of little Ilara Carter, standing alone among monstrous warriors, burned in their minds. Admiral Marcus Voss stood at the center of the command room, his gaze locked on the massive holographic screen. His face was calm, but his hands were clenched into fists. Around him, the greatest military leaders of Earth waited for his decision. "The Tarkun think they can mock us," Voss said, his voice low but filled with power. "They believe we are weak, that we will beg." He looked at the faces of the men and women around him. Scientists, strategists, soldiers, every single one of them shared the same expression: anger. "They are wrong," Voss continued. "They took a child. They humiliated us. And now we will remind them what it means to challenge humanity." A deep silence filled the room. Then General Harrison Gray, the leader of the orbital fleet, spoke. "The fleet is ready," he said. "We have over 1,000 ships armed and waiting for your order." Commander Elena Torres, head of the Covered Strike Division, stepped forward. "My team has already gathered intelligence on Ilara's location. She is being held on a Tarkun warship near the outer colony of Velkar 7. Voss nodded. "Then we move. This is not just a rescue mission. This is a message to the galaxy. Humanity does not needle. With those words, the largest human fleet in history began its march to war. The march to war. Across Earth's space stations, massive battlecruisers powered up their engines. Smaller strike ships and stealth vessels joined the formation. Warships that had been on patrol across the solar system returned, forming a single unstoppable force. The Earth Defense Armada had one mission: bring Ilara home. Destroy the Tarkun fleet if they stand in the way. As the fleet departed, a message was sent once again to the Tarkun Dominion. This is your final warning. Return the child. Surrender peacefully, or prepare for war. But the Tarkun only laughed at the message. In the Tarkun High Council chamber, Warlord Vrezek stood before his generals. They watched the human message play on a holographic screen, their expressions filled with mockery. The humans are amusing, one of the Tarkun leaders sneered. They truly believe they can challenge us. Vrezek grinned. Let them come. We will crush their little fleet and broadcast their destruction across the galaxy. The Tarkun prepared for battle, believing their superior firepower would make the fight easy. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this moment for decades. Ilara's strength. Inside the Tarkun warship, Ilara Carter sat quietly in a holding cell. The room was dark, cold, and surrounded by alien guards. A Tarkun warrior stepped inside, looking down at her with a cruel smile. Your people are coming, he said. They will fail, and you will remain here forever. Ilara stared up at him. Her hands were small, her frame was tiny compared to the massive alien, but her eyes were sharp. No, she said. They will win. The Tarkun warrior laughed. You are just a child. What makes you so sure? Ilara smiled. Because I know what humans do when you hurt one of us. For the first time, the warrior's smile faded. The fleet arrives. At the edge of the Velkar 7 system, the Tarkun fleet waited, ready for battle. Their warships, built for conquest, hovered like predators, their cannons aimed at the stars. Then, the human fleet arrived. The Earth Defense Armada emerged from warp, hundreds of warships appearing in perfect formation. The flagship, a massive dreadnought named HFY Titan, led the charge. At its command was Admiral Marcus Voss, his eyes fixed on the enemy. The Tarkun fleet commander, seeing the sheer size of the human fleet, hesitated for the first time. This is more than we expected, one Tarkun officer muttered. Voss's voice echoed across all communication channels. This is your last chance, he said. Return the girl. Surrender your fleet, or we will take her back by force. The Tarkun commander sneered. You are outmatched, human. We will annihilate you. Voss's lips curled into a smirk. You think we came here to fight fair? Before the Tarkun could react, Earth's fleet unleashed its first strike. The battle begins. A massive shockwave tore through the Tarkun fleet as human ships fired in perfect coordination. EMP pulses shut down Tarkun shields. Tactical missiles found their targets with deadly precision. The Tarkun fleet, once so confident, fell into chaos. Their warships scrambled to return fire, but human pilots moved too fast, too unpredictably. The battle had begun, and humanity was winning. The battlefield burned with the light of destruction. Earth's fleet moved with deadly precision, striking Tarkun warships before they could react. Missiles and laser cannons lit up the void, creating an explosive storm in space. Admiral Marcus Voss stood on the command bridge of the HFY Titan, watching the battle unfold. His officers worked swiftly, their hands moving over glowing control panels as they directed the fleet's next attacks. Enemy fleet is breaking formation, reported Commander Elena Torres. They're trying to regroup near their flagship. Voss narrowed his eyes. Cowards. They expected an easy victory, but now they were running. Don't let them escape, Voss ordered. We push forward. Full assault. The order was relayed instantly. Across the battlefield, human warships surged ahead, hunting the retreating Tarkun vessels like wolves chasing prey. The Tarkun flagship, a massive vessel named Dreadfang, remained at the center of the chaos. Inside, Warlord Vrazek stood in his command chamber, his claws digging into the armrests of his throne. His red eyes glowed with rage. This is impossible," he growled. "They are just humans. How can they be winning?" An officer turned to him, panic in his voice. "Sir, the humans' weapons, they are reading our movements before we even make them." Vrazek's mind raced. That's impossible. Unless. Then realization struck him. The humans had been studying them for years. They were not just fighting with weapons. They were fighting with intelligence. And they had outsmarted the Tarkun. Inside enemy territory, while the fleet battled outside, a small human strike team infiltrated the Tarkun warship holding Ilara Carter. Captain Dant Cross led the mission. He was a veteran soldier, wearing an advanced stealth suit that allowed him to blend with the shadows. Behind him, 5 other elite operatives moved silently through the dimly lit corridors of the enemy ship. Dant's helmet displayed a map of the ship, guiding them toward the holding cells. They had only one mission: rescue Ilara and bring her home. A Tarkun guard stood at the next corridor. Dant raised his fist, signaling his team to stop. He aimed his plasma rifle and fired. A silent pulse of energy struck the alien, dropping him instantly. They moved forward, fast, precise, deadly. Reaching the detention area, Dant placed a small hacking device on the security panel. The red lock light turned green. The doors slid open with a quiet hiss. Inside the cell, Ilara sat on the cold floor, her arms wrapped around her knees. The moment she saw them, her eyes widened in relief. "Are you from Earth?" she whispered. Dant smiled. "We are here to bring you home." Tarkun's last stand. Back on the battlefield, the Tarkun forces were falling apart. Their warships, once proud and mighty, now burned in space. But Warlord Vrazek refused to accept defeat. He stood in the middle of his bridge, breathing heavily. The humans had outmaneuvered them. They had broken his fleet. But he still had one last weapon. Turning to his officers, he growled, "Activate the planet cracker." A hush fell over the command center. Even his own officers hesitated. The planet cracker was a forbidden weapon, capable of destroying entire worlds. "If we cannot win, we will make sure they suffer," Vrazek said. "Target Earth's fleet." The massive cannon at the front of the Dreadfang began charging. Red energy gathered at its core, humming with deadly power. On the HSS Titan, Admiral Voss saw the weapon powering up. His heart clenched. "They're going to fire," a tactical officer shouted. "Then we stop them," Voss said. "Now." The final attack. Every human warship focused fire on the Dreadfang. Hundreds of missiles and plasma rounds struck its armored hull, but the Tarkun ship was heavily shielded. The planet cracker was almost ready. But before it could fire, a massive explosion ripped through the Tarkun flagship. Inside, Warlord Vrazek stumbled as alarms blared. "What happened?" he roared. A Tarkun officer checked the readings. His face turned pale. "Sir, the explosion came from inside the ship." And then, Dant Cross's voice echoed through their speakers. "Sorry to interrupt, but we borrowed some of your explosives," he said. "Oh, and we're taking the girl." Vrazek's rage turned to fear. In the chaos, the human strike team had planted bombs inside the flagship. And now, the Dreadfang was falling apart. Victory for humanity. As the Tarkun flagship exploded, the remaining alien warships surrendered. They had lost. Humanity had won. Ilara Carter was safe, and the galaxy had seen Earth's power. Admiral Voss took a deep breath. This was just the beginning. The Tarkun had mocked a human child. Now they would never forget the cost. The wreckage of the Tarkun fleet drifted through space, silent and lifeless. Fires still burned in the shattered remains of their warships. Earth's Armada had won, and the message was clear: humanity was not weak. On the command bridge of the HSS Titan, Admiral Marcus Voss watched the victory unfold. The enemy's flagship, Dreadfang, was nothing more than a broken husk. The mighty Tarquin warlords had fallen. But Voss was not celebrating. He knew something was wrong. "Status report," he ordered. Commander Elena Torres scanned the readings. "Most of the Tarquin fleet has surrendered, but..." She hesitated. Voss turned to her. "But what?" Torres frowned. "We can't find the body of Warlord Vrazek. He's missing." Voss's grip on the console tightened. That was not good news. Escape from the enemy's grip. Inside an abandoned Tarquin warship, a figure limped through the dark corridors. Warlord Vrazek was alive. His once proud armor was damaged, his red eyes filled with hatred. He pressed a button on his wrist device. A holographic screen flickered to life, showing the face of a Tarquin general still loyal to him. "General Razkar," Vrazek growled, his voice filled with anger. "Send a rescue team. Now." Razkar's face was filled with shock. "My lord, we thought you were dead." "I am alive," Vrazek snapped, "and I will have revenge. The humans have humiliated us, but we will strike back. Prepare the Shadow Fleet." Razkar hesitated. "But my lord, our forces are weakened." "The humans, I do not care." Vrazek roared. "We will remind them why they should fear the Tarquin Empire." The screen flickered off. Vrazek clenched his fists. This was not over. Not yet. Return to Earth. Back on AS Titan, the human strike team had returned safely. Ilara Carter, the child who had been mocked by the Tarquin, stood in the medical bay as a doctor checked her for injuries. She looked up at Captain Dante Cross, her rescuer. "Did we really win?" she asked softly. Dante gave a small smile. "Yeah, kid, we won." Ilara's eyes shone with determination. "Good." Admiral Voss entered the medical bay, his face serious. He looked at Ilara, then at Dante. "You did good out there." Dante nodded. "But something tells me this isn't over." Voss sighed. "No, it's not. Vrazek is still out there, and if I know him, he won't stop until he gets his revenge." Ilara clenched her fists. "Then we'll stop him again." The Admiral looked at her, impressed by her courage. She was just a child, but she had already become a symbol of humanity's strength. The Shadow Fleet awakens. In the darkness of space, deep inside a hidden Tarquin base, massive warships stood waiting. These were not ordinary vessels. They were cloaked, invisible to normal scanners. They were part of the Tarquin Shadow Fleet, a force designed for stealth and assassination. Inside the command center, General Razkar stood before Warlord Vrazek, who had arrived safely. "The fleet is ready, my lord," Razkar said. "What are your orders?" Vrazek's eyes burned with fury. "We will not attack their fleet directly." Razkar frowned. "Then what is our plan?" Vrazek bared his sharp teeth in a cruel smile. "We will strike at their home." Razkar's eyes widened. "Earth." "Yes," Vrazek said. "Let the humans think they have won. Let them believe they are safe. And then, when they least expect it, we will burn their world to ashes." The Shadow Fleet activated its cloaking systems, vanishing into the void. Humanity's greatest battle was yet to come. The silence of space was deceptive. The Tarquin Shadow Fleet moved unseen, like ghosts in the void. Cloaked and undetectable, they drifted towards Earth, their deadly weapons ready. Inside the command center of the lead warship, Warlord Vrazek stood tall. His hatred for humanity burned brighter than ever. "The humans celebrate their victory," he sneered. "They think they are safe." General Razkar bowed. "Shall we begin the attack, my lord?" Vrazek's red eyes gleamed. "Not yet. We strike when their defenses are at their weakest." His claws tapped against the control panel. "Prepare the infiltrators." A sudden warning. On ASS Titan, Admiral Marcus Voss studied the latest reports. Earth was celebrating the defeat of the Tarquin Armada. But Voss was not at ease. His instincts told him something was wrong. "Sir," Commander Elena Torres said, stepping forward. "Sensors picked up something unusual near Mars." Voss frowned. "What is it?" Torres hesitated. "A brief distortion, almost like something invisible passed through our scanners." Voss's expression darkened. "Cloaked ships." The realization hit him like a hammer. The Tarquin weren't finished. He slammed his fist on the console. "Get me Earth Command. We need tow." Suddenly, alarms blared across the ship. A message flashed on the screen. "Emergency. Unidentified ATTCK on lunar base." Voss's heart pounded. "They're already here." The attack on the moon. On Lunar Base Alpha, Earth's largest outpost on the moon, the attack came without warning. One moment, the base was calm. The next, explosions tore through the facility. Soldiers and engineers scrambled for cover as Tarquin shock troopers materialized out of thin air. Captain Derek Hensley grabbed his rifle and barked orders. "Defensive positions. Hold the line." The Tarquin warriors moved like shadows, using advanced stealth technology to avoid detection. Humans fought back bravely, but they were outmatched. A massive Tarquin warrior grabbed a human soldier, lifting him with ease. "Weaklings," the alien growled before throwing him aside. But the humans were not so easily broken. Captain Hensley aimed his plasma rifle and fired. The shot pierced through the Tarquin's armor, sending the alien crashing to the ground. Hensley turned to his men. "We don't let them take this base. Fight." The humans roared in defiance and rushed into battle. A desperate counterattack. Back on AS Titan, Admiral Voss activated emergency protocols. "All ships prepare for immediate deployment," he ordered. Elena Torres clenched her fists. "Sir, they're targeting our moon base first. Why not Earth?" Voss's eyes narrowed. "They're testing us. They want to see how we respond before striking Earth itself." Torres's face hardened. "Then we won't give them that chance." Voss nodded. "Send reinforcements to Lunar Base Alpha. And find a way to break their cloaking tech. We can't fight what we can't see." Elena's fingers flew over the controls. "Working on it, sir, but we need more time." Voss stared at the screen. Time was the one thing they didn't have. Ilara's discovery. In the science bay, Ilara Carter, the young girl who had survived the Tarquin's mockery, was deep in thought. She studied the battle reports, searching for a pattern. Ilara was no ordinary child. She had a mind like a supercomputer, able to see things others missed. She tapped a holographic screen, scanning past battles. The Tarquin's cloaking tech. "It's not perfect," she muttered. Captain Dant Cross stood beside her. "What do you see?" Ilara zoomed in on a battle replay. "Their cloaks aren't completely invisible. When they move fast, there's a small energy ripple." Dant's eyes widened. "You mean we can track them?" Ilara nodded. "If we modify the scanners to detect those ripples, we can see them before they strike." Dant grinned. "Kid, you might have just saved us all." Ilara smiled. "Let's tell Admiral Voss." The tide turns. With Ilara's discovery, the fleet's scientists rushed to modify the scanners. Minutes later, the first test results came in. Torres gasped. "Sir, we're detecting hundreds of hidden ships near the moon." Voss clenched his jaw. "Prepare all weapons. Fire on my command." On the battlefield, the Tarquin Shadow Fleet thought they were still invisible. They prepared to launch the final strike against Lunar Base Alpha. But then, boom! A massive explosion tore through their ranks. The humans had found them. Admiral Voss's voice echoed through the fleet. "Now, destroy them all." Earth's Armada opened fire, unleashing a storm of plasma and missiles. Tarquin warships exploded one by one. On his flagship, Warlord Vrazek watched in horror. How? His secret fleet, his unstoppable force, was being wiped out. He snarled. "Fall back. Retreat." But the humans weren't letting them go this time. A new battle begins. The fight was far from over. The Shadow Fleet was exposed, but Earth's forces were still outnumbered. Voss knew this was only the beginning. As explosions filled space, he turned to Torres. This is it, the battle that decides everything. Torres took a deep breath. Then let's make sure we win. Meanwhile, in the science bay, Ilara stared at the battle with determination. She had helped turn the tide once. She would do it again. Far away, Warlord Vrazek's rage burned hotter than ever. They ruined my plan, but I still have one last weapon. He turned to his officers. Prepare the Doombringer cannon. The battle for Earth was about to reach its climax. The battle raged on. Earth's Armada fought bravely, pushing back the Tarkon forces, but deep in the darkness of space, Warlord Vrazek prepared his final weapon, the Doombringer cannon. This was no ordinary weapon. It was a planet killer, designed to wipe out entire civilizations with a single blast. Inside the Tarkon flagship, Vrazek's red eyes burned with fury. His warriors had failed. His fleet was crumbling. But he would have his revenge. Is the cannon ready? He growled. An officer nodded. Fully charged, my lord. We are locking onto Earth now. Vrazek grinned. Let the humans watch as their world burns. A desperate warning. On ASS Titan, Admiral Marcus Voss watched the battle unfold. Humanity was winning, but something felt wrong. Then a new alert flashed on the screen. Incoming energy surge DTKTE. Commander Elena Torres gasped. Sir, the Tarkon flagship is charging a massive weapon. Voss's blood ran cold. He knew what this meant. Get me Earth Command, he shouted. We have to evacuate the planet. But it was too late. A red beam of light burst from the Tarkon flagship, stretching toward Earth. No, Torres screamed. But before the beam could fire, the screen glitched. Another message appeared. Jamming Signal DTTTED. We upon disrupted. Voss blinked. What just happened? Ilara's last hope. In the science bay, Ilara Carter worked frantically. She had been studying the Tarkon systems for hours. When she saw the Doombringer cannon charging, she knew she had to act fast. Come on. Come on, she whispered, typing as fast as she could. Using her knowledge of alien technology, she sent a hacking signal to the enemy flagship. It was a long shot, but she had one goal: to disable the cannon before it fired. Her fingers flew over the console. The screen flashed. Jamming successful. Targeting systems offline. She gasped in relief. It worked. A furious warlord. On the Tarkon flagship, Warlord Vrazek roared in anger. What happened? He demanded. His officer trembled. The cannon was hacked. Someone stopped it. Vrazek's claws scraped against the metal floor. Who dares defy me? His eyes burned with hatred. The humans had taken everything from him. Now he would make them suffer. Send every last ship. Destroy them all. The final battle. The Tarkon fleet charged forward, throwing everything they had at Earth's forces. Admiral Voss gritted his teeth. All ships, hold the line. Lasers and missiles lit up the darkness of space. Ships exploded in fiery bursts. On the HSS Titan, Elena Torres turned to Voss. Sir, we can't hold much longer. Voss took a deep breath. This was their last stand. Then a voice crackled over the radio. Reinforcements incoming. Voss's eyes widened. Whoa. Suddenly, dozens of Earth battleships emerged from hyperspace. It was the backup fleet from Mars and Jupiter. Victory at last. The battle turned in humanity's favor. The Tarkon ships fell one by one. On the enemy flagship, Vrazek saw his fleet collapsing. His hands shook with rage. He had lost. He growled, If I die, I will take the humans with me. He turned to the self-destruct console. But before he could press it, boom! A missile smashed through the flagship's core, causing a massive explosion. The warlord's final scream was lost in the fire. His ship vanished in a burst of light. The aftermath. As the smoke cleared, Earth's forces stood victorious. The Tarkon were defeated. On the HSS Titan, Admiral Voss slumped into his chair, exhausted but relieved. Commander Torres smiled. "We did it, sir." Voss nodded. "No, humanity did it." Meanwhile, in the science bay, Elara Carter smiled. She had saved Earth, and the galaxy would never forget it. The Tarkon flagship was gone, consumed in a massive explosion. The war was finally over. The battlefield of space was littered with the remains of Tarkon warships. Humanity had won. On the HSS Titan, Admiral Marcus Voss sat in silence, staring at the wreckage on the view screen. They had survived, but at what cost? Commander Elena Torres turned to him. "Sir, we're receiving messages from Earth. They're asking, is it really over?" Voss took a deep breath. Then he nodded. "Yes, it's over." The command deck erupted in cheers. Officers hugged each other. Tears of relief filled their eyes. But deep inside, they all knew this was only the beginning. Earth rejoices. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Cities across the planet celebrated the victory. Families who had feared destruction cried with joy. On a giant screen in Times Square, the message appeared. Humanity stay vice. Children cheered. Elders wept. People danced in the streets. For the first time in history, the entire planet stood together, not as separate nations, but as one species, the heroes of the war. On the Titan, Voss turned to Elara Carter, the young scientist who had saved Earth from the Doombringer cannon. "You saved billions of lives today," he said. Elara shook her head. "No, we all did." Voss smiled. She was right. Humanity had won not with brute force alone, but with courage, intelligence, and unity. The enemy's fate. The Tarkon Empire had been crippled. Without their warlord, the surviving Tarkon fled into deep space. Some Tarkon warships surrendered, their commanders knowing they had no future in a war they couldn't win. Humanity spared them. Instead of wiping them out, Earth's leaders sent a message. "We do not seek revenge. We seek peace." The galaxy would remember not just humanity's strength, but their mercy. A new dawn. Weeks later, a great ceremony was held on Earth. The leaders of humanity stood before the world, honoring the fallen, the heroes, and the unity that had saved them all. Elara Carter, now a symbol of Earth's ingenuity, was invited to speak. She stepped forward, looking at the millions gathered. "We were mocked," she said. "They called us weak. They saw us as nothing." She paused. The crowd listened in silence. "But today, we showed the universe who we truly are." She raised her hand toward the sky. "We are human. We do not break. We do not bow. We do not surrender. And we never will." The crowd roared with pride. The final message. From the ruins of war, a stronger humanity emerged. They had won against an empire far greater than them, but they had also proven something far more important, that no matter the enemy, no matter the challenge, humanity will always rise. And across the galaxy, those who once mocked Earth now watched with fear, because they knew humanity had just begun its rise.